Okay, so for our pagination to work, we need to add another state value here. So I'm going to call this state value page. So count page and set page. This is going to be equal to useState. By default, I want it to be on page 1. I mean, obviously, right? And then what we need to do is we need to append something on the end of this request, right? So I'm going to say ampersand page equals to, and then $page. So what this means is the page number is going to be equal to the page state value that we have on top. So this request is going to fetch articles, 10 articles in number on page 1. Okay, and just to show you that this is working, look at this. We are on page 1, so obviously this is going to be fetched, right? If I go into page 50, then the articles on the 50th page are going to be shown, as you can see right here. Okay, so that's looking fantastic. So let's go back to page 1. And then now what we need to do is we need to have some kind of buttons that are going to be changing this pagination when we click on them. Okay, so that what I'm going to do is right above, where is it? I want to go above this section, which means that now I have to grab the entirety of this section and place it inside a fragment. Otherwise, I'm going to get an error. So from here all the way to here, cut it out and place it inside a fragment like so. And then now, and the reason why you're going to get an error is because you can only return one element from a return statement in React, and the return statement in this section is, in this case, is this bracket right here. It's called an implicit return. So here I want to get an article. This article is going to be a UL with 2 list items, so li times 2, and these 2 list items are going to be buttons, so li times 2, and I want them to be buttons. This button is going to say previous, and this one is going to say next, and we should see previous and next right there. Fantastic. And then inside this article, I want to give this a class name of border dash top and border dash bottom and border dash slate dash 300, and we should have that on the screen. And then I want to say margin bottom of, let's say 10, to push away from this article right there. Okay, and you know what, yeah, that is correct. And you know what, let me not say margin bottom 10, let's say margin y of 10. Okay, that we're going to have this, and then we can go inside the ul, give this a class name of of flex and items dash center and justify dash between to take them to the end. And then I can say padding x of 1 or of 2, just so that they're not completely to the edge right there. And then inside this ul, I want to say padding y of 3 to increase this padding on the top and bottom of these borders. And then I want to add a left arrow here and a right arrow here, so I can go into the previous button and I can say ampersand LARR, so left arrow, and then here I can say ampersand right arrow, so RARR, like so. Okay, so fantastic. So let's try out these buttons for the hover state. So for the buttons, I'm going to give this a class name of, for when I hover over them, I want them to be text indigo dash 700, just like the text for the heading, and we should see that. Okay, fantastic. So now when you click on them, nothing really happens because we have not added the functionality, right? So what I want to happen is right on this button, when I click on this, so on click, I can place in my inline function and I can say set page into page -1, and this works because what the previous button is, if you're on page 2, when you click on it, you go back to page 1, and what the next button does is, I'm just going to copy this. Oops. Let's copy this. What the next button does right here is, when I click on it, then I want to go into page +1. What is happening? I'm missing a bracket. There we go. Can't scroll. So let's save that. There we go. So when you click on the next page, I want the page to increase by 1. When I click on the previous page, I want the page to decrease by 1. Okay, so I can click on next and we should see nothing happens. And the reason why nothing happens is because we need to add a page to be a dependency array. And what the dependency array will do is that it's going to run the entirety of this function inside the use effect every single time that the page changes, and that's what we want to happen. So let's add the dependency array like so. Let's save this, and then when you click on next, now you can see that we go into the next page. When you click on next again, we go into the next page, and so on and so forth. and then we can click on previous to go back to the previous page, and so on and so forth. And yeah, now when we are on the first page, I want to a notification to pop up that, hey, look, you're already on the first page and you can't go back to the previous page. So in order to do that, we're going to use a package called reactjs, which we are going to install. So let me say npm install reactjs. Okay, and right at the top of this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import, we're going to be importing two items. The first one is toast, which is a method from reactjs, and then toast container, which is the component that we're going to render when we are showing that alert. This is coming from reactjs. Okay, and then we also need to import the css file, which is going to style our alert for us. So this is going to be coming from import, let's say import reactjs /dist /reactjs reactjs.css. I think that's the correct one. If it's not the correct one, we're going to find out in a moment. And then now what I want to happen is we are going to refactor a bit of this code, okay, because we need to conduct a bit more checks. So I'm going to grab this from here, and I'm going to create a custom function called handle previous. So handle previous, and we're going to create this function. So right below our use effect, I'm going to say const handle previous is equal to an arrow function, where I'm going to say that if page is equal to 1, so if we're on page 1, then what I want to do is I want to say set page into 1, like so, and then I want to create a toast that says you are already on the first page. Okay, and then else we're just going to say set page into page -1. Okay, so let's save this, and this function should work as we already have it referenced here. So handle previous, and let's see, and nothing's going to work by there. I've just realized, because we need to render our toast container. Okay, so our toast container. So for our toast container, what I'm going to do is right above this, I'm just going to render toast container like so, and I'm going to set the position prop for this to top right, like so, if you can spell it, and then you can close it out. So let's save this, and then let's try to click on previous. Okay, we need to reload it. Okay, so let's click on previous, and look at that, we are already on the first page, and you can click it as many times as you want, and this is still going to work as you expect it to work. Okay, now what I want to do is I also want to add a check for the next page, because the limit for this, if you're only going to be fetching 10 articles per page, then the limit for the pages is going to be around 2827, because I actually checked. So what I want to do is right here, I want to create a function called handle next. Handle next, and handle next is going to be almost similar to handle previous. So I'm going to say const handle next equals to my arrow function, and I'm going to say if page is equal to I'm going to say if page is greater than 999. Let me say 1000. If page is greater than 1000, then set page into 1000, and then we're going to create a toast here that says you have reached the last page. And then if we are not on the last page, we're going to say set page into page +1. Simple as that, and the functionality works. Okay, so now the question is going to become, then how are you going to test whether this is working? Very simple. We are going to change our default state value here to 999. Okay, and then we're going to go into the next page, which is now page 1000, right? So ideally, when we click on next again, then we should see a toast here. So let's try it. And oops, what did I? Oh, it's greater than 1000, so I set it to 1000. Okay, so now when you click on this, we should see a toast. There we go. So you have reached the last page. So that's looking fantastic. And the reason why you can still fetch the data here, notice that it's because of how we have written this. So we have written this one, right? So we have said that if page is greater than 1,000, then set page into 1,000. And here we're saying we have set the page to 999. So it's technically fetching the articles of the 2 pages, only of the 2 pages. That's what's happening. Okay, so this is working correctly as it should. What we need to do next is we want to add this very same pagination on the bottom. And once we add it on the bottom, then we're going to encounter something else. So let me just paste it in. So let's just copy this, copy, and let's go to the bottom of this and paste it here. Okay, so we have our previous and our next button. The functionality is still working. Okay, so we can click on the next page and notice that we do actually get articles for the next page, but you do notice a problem, right? We're clicking on the next page, but we are still on the bottom. We don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do is, and I'm going to show you 2 ways to do this. What we're going to do is right here, and here as well, because it happens on the previous page as well. We're just going to say window.scroll to 00. Okay, which just means window.scroll to the top. So we can click on previous and it takes us to the top now. And if we go to the bottom and we click on next, it's going to take us back to the top. Okay. And then something that I've just remembered is I want to add lazy loading to these images, because I don't want all these images to load at every single time that you're looking at this, right? So what I'm going to do is we are going to go inside our fetch articles, right? And then we're going to find where there is an image. Where's our first image? Right here. And we're going to say loading equals to lazy. Okay. And what lazy loading does is that it only loads the images once you are about to scroll into the viewport. Okay, if you never scroll to the bottom, then the bottom images are never going to be loaded, and it just saves on the performance of your website or your web application, really. And we're going to do the same here. So loading equals to lazy. And is there another image? I don't think there's another image. Okay, so let's save this. And yeah, that already introduces lazy loading into your application. And let me see if I can demonstrate it. So if we go into the network tab right here, right? And if I want to fetch my images, so here, right? And I reload this, then we should see some default images being fetched by default, right? Now, let me make this bigger. If I scroll to the bottom, ideally what should happen is more images should appear here. So let's try it out. Look at that. Look at that. Do you see that? This page doesn't have a lot of images, but it really demonstrated that quite well, where the more you scroll to the bottom, the more you are getting more and more images. Then what happens is they're going to be loaded into the viewport just before you get there. So it improves on the performance and probably saves on the bandwidth of your users.